Hello, boys and girls, and this is Mr. Osa. We're going to talk about fur trading in Canada. It's amazing to think that without this, the beaver skin hat, Canada might, as we know it today, might not even exist. And the lives of the Indigenous people would be completely different today. Hats were made from beaver pelts, which was a really hot fashion in Europe back in the 1500s. But because they became such a big popular item there, with overhunting, within 20 years of beaver pelt hats becoming popular, there were no beavers left in Europe. So then fishermen who from Europe who already were fishing off the banks of like Halifax and Newfoundland and up into the St. Lawrence area, they began trading with First Nations people in North America for these beaver pelts, which were very valuable. And here's some pictures of some hats. Some kind of hats are made out of beaver pelts. The thing is, they were waterproof, extremely waterproof, and very useful. There was two different kinds of ways of making the pelts. We have a coat pelt or castor gras, which several pelts were sewn together into clothing and worn with the fur next to the body. Then there was a parchment beaver or castor sec, which was stretched and dried and still had the long guard hairs attached. Hat makers in Europe shaved off the guard hairs as the outer hair of the pelts and smushed it together to make felting. Man's beaver hat cost about 21 shillings in 1770. That is about $150 in today's money. Here's an interesting quote from an Indigenous trader. The beaver does everything perfectly. It makes kettles, hatchets, swords, knives, and even bread. Now, he's saying this because this is the sort of thing that a beaver pelt will get you, right? If you get a beaver, what is a beaver? A beaver's not a beaver. A beaver is tools. A beaver is food. And here are some standardized um, ways of trading beaver pelts. So one beaver pelt here be worth 2 combs or 20 fish hooks. One beaver pelt could also be worth a pair of pants. 4 beaver pelts could be worth a pistol or 8 knives. 4 beaver pelts could also be worth 2 mirrors or 6 thimbles, which of course are really important for sewing. The Alms du Nord Northmen were tough fur traders who ranged far and wide. They made fun of men who were based in Montreal and spent winters there, calling them mangeurs du lard, or pork eaters. And there's a pork piggy right there. The Cours de Bois usually worked on their own. They were experts at traveling the wilderness, whether on water or land, and also traded furs. Voyageurs usually worked for a company and mostly just paddled with others who did the actual trading. Women workers. The fur trade would not have existed without the non-stop work by Indigenous women. They made snowshoes, moccasins, and all kinds of clothing. They repaired canoes, they planted and harvested corn, chopped firewood, prepared animal skins, and washed clothes and cooked meals. So pretty hard to operate without these women. They also made all-important pemmican. Pemmican is a kind of food. Because of their many skills, Indigenous women were allowed to work in the fur trade posts, places where European women were not allowed because life there was thought to be too rough for them. Men who worked there for the fur companies often married Indigenous women, and they were known as country wives. No doubt, many were truly caring relationships. But it was also cheaper for these men to marry Indigenous women than to pay them for all the work they did. The children of the fur traders and Indigenous women were the first Métis people. Some of these marriages survived, but many men in the fur trade simply left their families behind and returned to Europe, where they married again. Okay, thank you very much. And there's a question sheet at the end there. If you could fill that out and send it to me. At the very end, there's also a video about the Voyageurs. The video was made in the 1960s, and it's a pretty good video. It's about 20 minutes long. See if you can last to the end there and watch that video there. Okay, thank you. Take care.